My husband was in an accident while scuba diving in the Florida Keys. My mother-in-law called me, sobbing, telling me I had to fly down to identify his belongings and sign the papers to bring him home. I was about to book the flight when I received a strange text message. "Don't go yet. Check the wooden chest in the attic." On my desk, an Excel spreadsheet is always open. As an actuary, my job is to calculate risk. To me, a human life can sometimes be distilled into a series of probabilities. What is the probability of a 5-year-old man dying of lung cancer? What is the probability of a traffic accident during rush hour at the intersection of North and Halsted? Everything follows a pattern. But my own life had just been hit by a variable that defied all my calculations. The phone rang, displaying the landline from my mother-in-law's house. I frowned at the clock. 10 a.m. At this hour, Eleanor was usually window shopping on Michigan Avenue or gossiping with her friends from the book club. She rarely called me unless she needed money. I picked up, my voice calm. "Hello, Eleanor, it's Grace." The other end wasn't a voice, but a cacophony of sobs, sniffles, and wails, a chaotic sound that made me hold the receiver away from my ear. "Grace, oh, it's terrible." "Michael! Michael has left us!" My fingers, typing on the keyboard, froze. Michael was my husband, currently on a business trip combined with a vacation in Florida. He said he was scouting the market for imported home goods with a few business partners. "Eleanor, calm down and tell me what happened. What's wrong with Mike?" I asked, my eyes still fixed on a mortality chart on my screen. "He went diving near some island, Islamorada," the sheriff down there called. "They said they only found his oxygen tank." "Oh, Grace, why is my life so miserable?" Eleanor shrieked. Her cries echoed in my quiet office, causing a few colleagues to glance over with concern. I remained still, but my brain began processing data faster than any computer. Mike went scuba diving and disappeared. I knew for a fact that Mike was an excellent swimmer. He'd won second place in a regional competition in high school. Furthermore, the waters around Islamorada are famous for being calm and clear, and the diving spots for tourists are rarely dangerously deep. Mike was also a meticulous person, or more accurately, he was afraid of dying. He would never risk his life on thrill-seeking adventures without top-of-the-line safety gear. The probability of a strong swimmer, diving in safe, calm waters, and vanishing without a trace was nearly zero. Unless there was an external factor, or he himself wanted it that way. What else did they say, Eleanor? Have they found him? No, they said they only found a torn life vest and the tank. They think he was swept away. Or a shark. "Oh, Michael, my boy, were you going there to work or to die? I told you to stay home." Eleanor launched into her usual lament. My stomach didn't churn with anxiety. Instead, a chill ran down my spine. It wasn't the fear of losing a husband, but the suspicion of someone accustomed to dealing with fraudulent insurance claims. "Eleanor, stop crying. It won't solve anything. Who called you? The sheriff's office? Did they leave a contact number?" "It was someone from the county office. She said the family has to go immediately, to identify his things and sign some papers so they can issue a death certificate. Book a flight, Grace. Book it right now. I'll go with you." I did a quick mental calculation. Mike had been gone for 3 days. Today was the 4th. If an accident happened, it would usually be on the 1st or 2nd day. Why the delay in notifying us? And why the rush to have me sign a death certificate when a body hadn't even been found? By law, a person must be missing for a certain period, after extensive search efforts, before being declared legally dead. The push to sign the papers immediately was a massive red flag. "I understand. Get your things ready, Eleanor. I'll arrange things at work and come by to pick you up," I said and hung up. The air around me seemed to thicken. I didn't cry. Strangely, not a single tear would fall. Perhaps it was because the love between Mike and me had faded long ago, leaving only a shell of responsibility and financial arrangements. Or perhaps my intuition was telling me that my husband wasn't dead. I opened my browser and searched for Florida Keys weather last 3 days and scuba diving accident Islamorada. The results showed sunny skies, calm seas, no storms. There were no reports of any fatal tourist accidents in the local Florida news outlets in the past 24 hours. If a tourist went missing, the press would typically be all over it. The media silence, my mother-in-law's urgency, the illogical disappearance of a skilled swimmer. I stood up, packing my work into my briefcase. My boss walked by and, seeing my expression, asked, "What's wrong, Grace? You look pale." "My husband had an accident in Florida. I need to take a few days off to handle it." My boss nodded immediately, his eyes filled with sympathy. He thought I was in shock, and I was. Not because my husband was dead, but because the numbers in my head weren't adding up. An equation with faulty input can never yield a correct result. I walked out of the office building, the Chicago sun hitting my face. I hailed a cab. As I waited, I pulled out my phone to book the earliest flight to Miami. But before my finger could touch the purchase button, a text from an unknown number made my phone vibrate violently in my hand. The message was short, anonymous, but it was enough to make my blood run cold. "Don't go yet. Check the wooden chest in the attic." I stared at the screen. The number was untraceable. But who knew I was about to go to Florida? Who knew my house had an attic, and what was in the old wooden chest that required inspection? The taxi pulled up. The driver rolled down the window. "Where to?" I hesitated for a second, then changed my mind. Instead of the airport or my mother-in-law's house, I needed to go home first. "A condo in Lincoln Park," I said, "and please step on it." In the cab, I couldn't take my eyes off the message. A sense of unease crept into every cell of my body, not for Mike, but for myself. A trap had been set, and I had just placed my foot in it. Our condo was on the 15th floor. Mike bought it 3 years ago, claiming it was from his business profits. But I knew that more than half of the money came from my savings and a mortgage in my name. Mike always said, "What's a husband's is a wife's," but he'd cleverly put his name first on the deed, with me second, arguing it was more convenient since he was the head of the household. At the time, I believed him. Or perhaps I was too busy with my numbers to argue. I opened the door to a cold, silent apartment. The faint scent of men's cologne lingered in the air, the expensive kind Mike wore when meeting clients. I didn't turn on the lights, heading straight for the attic. This was Mike's private workspace, or more accurately, the place where he and his friends had poker nights and played video games until dawn. Whenever I was on a business trip, he forbade me from cleaning up here, claiming he was afraid of losing important documents. What important documents? For a guy who dabbled in importing questionably sourced home goods, I knew, but I let it go. Out of sight, out of mind. The wooden stairs creaked under my feet. The afternoon sun shone through a small window directly onto an old wooden chest in the corner. This chest was a gift from Eleanor to Mike. She claimed it was a valuable antique. To me, it was just a bulky piece of furniture that was always kept locked. I searched for the spare key. I remembered a time when Mike, drunk, had dropped his keys between the sofa cushions. I had found them and kept the chest key without telling him, just in case. It was a professional habit, assessing and mitigating risk. I never thought I would actually use it. My hand trembled slightly as I inserted the key. Click! The sound of the latch releasing was stark in the silence. The heavy lid creaked open, releasing a musty smell. I looked inside. No money, no gold, no business documents. The first thing that caught my eye was a photo frame, a memorial photo. I gasped, covering my mouth to stifle a scream. In the black and white photograph was my face, smiling. It was the passport photo I took last year. Next to the frame was a brand new urn, empty, a neatly folded black funeral dress, and, most horrific of all, a blank death certificate. The field for the deceased's name was empty, but the date of birth and social security number were already filled in. Mine. I stumbled backward, tripping over a stool. What was this? A sick joke? A curse? No. Mike wasn't superstitious enough to set up a living altar for his wife to jinx her. He was a pragmatist. Everything he did had a monetary value. I moved closer, searching more thoroughly. Beneath layers of velvet lining at the bottom of the chest was a stack of papers. I pulled them out. It was a travel insurance policy. The insurer was Viridian Mutual, a competitor to my firm. The personal accident coverage was for $2 million. I flipped to the last page. The signature of the policyholder, Michael Evans. The signature of the insured, Grace Evans. The policy was dated 1 week ago, just before Mike left for Florida. But wait, my signature. It was a perfect copy. But I had never signed this paper. It was a forgery. Mike had forged my signature to buy an insurance policy on my life. My eyes locked onto the beneficiary section. It wasn't him. If Mike was dead, or pretending to be, he couldn't be the beneficiary. The name was printed clearly. Kevin Evans. Mike's younger brother. My head spun, not with fear anymore, but with a rage that ignited like gasoline. The scattered pieces of the puzzle began to snap together. Mike goes to Florida, reports himself missing, and lures me over to identify him. If I go to Florida, what happens? A staged car accident on the overseas highway? A robbery gone wrong? Or would I simply go for a swim and disappear just like him? If I died in Florida, this $2 million insurance policy would be activated. The beneficiary was Kevin. Mike, being legally dead, wouldn't be investigated. Kevin would receive the money and then split it with his brother, who would be hiding somewhere under a new name. I kept digging. A passport fell out. It was a brand new passport. The name on it was Robert Miller, born in 1985, from Houston, Texas. But the photo was of a face so familiar it made me want to vomit. Michael. He had already prepared his escape route, a fake passport to leave the U.S. and travel to another country, maybe somewhere in the Caribbean like the Bahamas where he'd always dreamed of retiring. It was all clear now. This wasn't an accident. This was an elaborate play, staged to take my life and defraud an insurance company. A plan so cruel I couldn't believe the man I had shared a bed with for 5 years could conceive it. My phone rang again. Eleanor. Seeing mother-in-law on the screen made me feel sick. Was she in on it? Or was she just another pawn in the game of her precious sons? I didn't answer. I needed time to think. I needed a plan. If they wanted to play a game of life and death, I would show them what the calculations of an actuary truly looked like. They saw a $2 million prize. I saw the fatal errors in their plan. I photographed everything. The makeshift memorial, the photo, the urn, the insurance policy, the fake passport. Then I put everything back in my bag. I locked the chest, wiped my fingerprints from the handle, and left the room, closing the door behind me. The house was still silent, but now, in my eyes, it was no longer a home. It was the scene of an attempted murder, and the intended victim had just declared war. I sat on the living room sofa and laid out the evidence on the coffee table. My mind was ice cold, emotions shoved aside to make way for logical analysis. The insurance policy was worth $2 million, with a one-time premium of $5,000. Where did Mike get $5,000? He was drowning in debt from failed business ventures and a lavish lifestyle that included supporting a mistress. Just last month, he'd asked me for $20,000 to cover a bank loan. And yet he had the money to buy life insurance for me? This money had to have come from a loan or from Kevin, his brother, the gambling addict. Where would Kevin get that kind of money? Loan sharks, almost certainly. They were betting everything on this one gamble, my life in exchange for their wealth and freedom. I flipped through the policy. There was a critical exclusion clause. The policy would be void if the insured's death was the result of an intentional act or illegal activity. But proving that after an accidental death in another state would be incredibly difficult. The local police would base their conclusions on the scene. If they staged it well, the money would be in their hands quickly. Furthermore, having Mike die first was a clever move. According to inheritance law, if a husband dies before his wife, his assets are divided among his spouse, children, and parents. But Mike had no assets, only debts. His death allowed him to escape his creditors. Then, when I died, the $2 million would go to Kevin, the designated beneficiary. Kevin would use the money to pay off both their debts and support Mike abroad. It was perfect. A perfect plan, in theory. But they forgot one thing: who I was. I was the person who specialized in finding the flaws in claim forms. I knew how to spot the tiniest inconsistencies that most people overlook. I held the fake passport up to the light. The forgery was sophisticated, but not flawless. The barcode at the bottom didn't perfectly match the new standards. The official stamp was slightly misaligned. It might pass a cursory check, but it would never survive the scrutiny of an international border crossing. So how did Mike plan to travel? He'd have to travel by sea or bribe someone to get him out of the country. My phone rang again. This time, it wasn't Eleanor. It was the number of Jessica, Mike's young, beautiful mistress. I had never saved her number, but I recognized it from Mike's detailed phone bill last month. I answered without saying a word. "Hello? Is this Grace?" Her voice was saccharine sweet. "This is Jess, one of Mike's business partners. I heard about his accident. I'm so sorry for your loss." A business partner who does business in bed, I thought. "Thank you. Why are you calling?" I replied, my voice flat. "Well, Mike borrowed some money from me for this import deal. Now that he's missing, I'm worried. You're going to Florida, right?" "Could you see what the situation is?" She was probing, trying to find out if I was taking the bait. She had to be in on the plan. A gold digger like Jess would never pass up a chance at a piece of $2 million. "I'm on my way to the airport now," I lied. "Don't worry. If I find my husband, I'll tell him to pay you back. And if he's dead, you can bring the IOU to me." I deliberately emphasized the word dead. "Okay, well, be careful down there. It can be a dangerous place." Her last sentence sounded like a veiled threat. Dangerous. I hung up and smirked. "You're the ones in danger." I opened my laptop and logged into my company's database, using my high-level access for a cross-check. I searched for Kevin Evans. The results popped up. Kevin had 3 overdue personal loans with 2 different banks, totaling over $25,000. He was also on a blacklist for defaulting. With such a disastrous financial profile, Kevin would never have been approved as the beneficiary of a major policy if the underwriters had done their due diligence. But Mike had circumvented that by purchasing a travel insurance policy. The vetting process for those is much looser than for life insurance. As long as you pay the premium, it's effective immediately. I needed more evidence. I remembered Mike had an old, cracked iPhone he'd tossed in a desk drawer, claiming it was broken. I ran to the desk in the corner of the living room and rummaged through the drawers. The old iPhone 7 was buried under a pile of utility bills. I plugged it in. Luckily, it powered on. Mike was a simple man, or rather, a lazy one. His passwords were always his birthday or mine. No, he didn't love me that much. His mother's birthday? No. I tried Jessica's birthday. I knew it because Mike had once asked me to order a cake for a client, specifying the date. Click. The screen unlocked. I let out a bitter laugh. Of course. His mistress's birthday for his phone, his mother's for the safe. A wife was just a ghost in his life. I went to his messages. Most were deleted, but the recently deleted folder in his texts still held a few conversations. Mike must have thought the phone was truly broken. A chat between Babe, his name for Jess, and my man, her name for him. Jess. Did the old lady buy it? Mike. Hook, line, and sinker. She's wailing her head off. Just keep up the act. Make sure you push her to get Grace on a plane as soon as possible. Jess. Are you sure everything's set up in Florida? What if she doesn't, you know? Mike. Don't worry. Kevin's guy is ready. The truck drivers down there are crazy. A traffic accident is easy to arrange. Once it's done, I'm off to the Bahamas. You get the money and meet me there. Jess, I love you so much. Oxo oso. My hand clenched the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. The words danced before my eyes like daggers stabbing at my heart. Not out of jealousy, but because of their chilling cruelty. They discussed my death as casually as planning a trip to the grocery store. I screenshotted the entire conversation with my own phone. This would be crucial evidence, but it wasn't enough. I needed to catch them in the act. I needed a counterplan, my own version of playing dead. The clock struck noon. My stomach rumbled, but I wasn't hungry. I went to the kitchen and drank a glass of cold water, the chill calming the fire in my veins. I needed an ally. In this fight, I was alone against my husband's family and his mistress. A greedy mother-in-law, a murderous husband, a debt-ridden brother-in-law, a manipulative mistress. I was surrounded. I thought of David. David was my best friend from college, now a brilliant litigation attorney. He had warned me about Mike several times, saying he had shifty eyes. I was angry with him then. Now I realized how foolish I'd been. I dialed his number. "Grace, to what do I owe the honor? Planning a second wedding?" David's cheerful voice came through. "David, I need your help. It's a matter of life and death," I said, my tone deadly serious. He was silent for a moment. Then his voice dropped. "Where are you? I'm on my way. Don't come here. Meet me at your office. I can't talk about this at my place." "Okay, 30 minutes. I hung up and immediately called Sophia. Sophia was Mike's ex-girlfriend from 7 years ago. He had tricked her into giving him her life savings for an investment, then dumped her when she got pregnant. The stress caused her to miscarry. Sophia hated Mike with a vengeance. She now lived and worked in the Florida Keys as a freelance tour guide. "Hello? Sophia? It's Grace, Mike's wife. Why are you calling me? I want nothing to do with that bastard," she snapped. "I know. I'm calling to tell you that I'm about to join the club of his victims, but this time, he's not just after money, he's after my life. Do you want to help me get revenge?" Silence on the other end. I could hear her heavy breathing. "Tell me everything." I gave her the short version, the fake disappearance, the insurance policy, the plan to have me killed in Florida. "That son of a bitch," Sophia hissed. "He never changes. What do you need me to do?" "I need you to be my eyes and ears in the Keys. You know the area. Help me find where Mike is hiding. I'm sure he hasn't gone far. He has to wait until I arrive and am taken care of before he can move on." "Done. You get on that plane. I'll pick you up at the airport. I swear, I will help you expose him." With Sophia on board, I felt a little stronger. I changed into a discreet black outfit and put on large sunglasses to hide my eyes. Not that they were swollen, but I needed to play the part of the grieving wife. I grabbed some cash, all my important personal documents, and the savings accounts I had hidden from Mike, and put them in my purse. I walked out of the condo, locking the door carefully. Before leaving, I glanced up at the security camera in the corner of the living room. It was connected to Mike's phone. He was surely watching my every move. I stood in front of the camera and put on a little show. I covered my face, my shoulders shaking as if I were sobbing. I collapsed onto a chair, pounding my chest in anguish. Then, I wiped my tears, pulled out a suitcase, and began throwing clothes into it chaotically, as if in a panic. Performance complete. I dragged the suitcase to the door. I knew that somewhere in Florida, Mike was watching his phone screen, a triumphant smile on his face. He thought the fish had taken the bait. He had no idea this fish had teeth sharper than he could ever imagine. I took a taxi to David's law firm. On the way, I mentally outlined my plan. Step 1. Pretend to walk into the trap and fly to Florida. Step 2. Cut off all financial resources for Mike and Kevin. Step 3. Turn the tables, using Mike's fake death to make him legally dead, rendering him a ghost with no identity, unable to go anywhere. Step 4. Expose their crimes and send them all to prison. The car stopped in front of David's office building. I paid the driver and stepped out decisively. The afternoon sun cast my long shadow on the hot asphalt. The game has begun, Michael. You want to play the part of the tragic husband? I'll let you have your moment. But I'll be the one writing the final act. David's office was on the 10th floor, with a glass wall overlooking the Chicago River. He greeted me with a rare, serious expression. "Sit down. You look like hell, but your eyes are sharp as daggers." He poured me a glass of water. I put down my bag and took out a folder of photocopies. I'd stopped at a print shop on the way. "Take a look at this." David scanned the documents. The more he read, the tighter his brow furrowed. My God, $2 million, a fake passport. This guy has some nerve. This is a conspiracy to commit murder for insurance fraud. What are you going to do? Report it to the police here? Not yet. I shook my head. This evidence proves forgery and intent to defraud, but it's not enough for an attempted murder charge since the act hasn't happened. Besides, he's in another state. If we alert the authorities now, he'll flee to a third country, and finding him will be impossible. I want to catch the whole network, including the mistress and the brother who's helping him. Grace, you're playing with fire. You'll be in a place you don't know well. What if he hires a couple of local thugs to take care of you? I have Sophia helping me there, and I need you to do something crucial for me here. Name it. For old time's sake, I'm all in. I need you to draft a petition to declare a person legally missing and freeze all their assets. The moment I land in Florida, I want Michael Evans to become a legal ghost. Every bank account, every credit card frozen solid. With no money and no real passport, and with me holding the evidence of his fake one, he'll be trapped. David nodded slowly. I can do that. I have a very reputable contact in Miami. I'll send them the file immediately. But you have to be incredibly careful. One more thing, I said with a cold smile. I need to borrow a substantial amount of money from my mother-in-law. Let's call it compensation for emotional distress. What are you planning? Eleanor has a retirement savings account with about $150,000. Plus, Kevin recently sold some family property to pay off debts, but hasn't paid them yet. I'm going to take all of it. David's eyes widened. You're going to con them back? It's not a con. It's holding it for safekeeping. With money, they'll only cause more trouble. I need to cut off all their resources before I make my final move. I took out my phone, took a deep breath. No, I adjusted my glasses and dialed Eleanor's number. Hello, Eleanor? My voice was trembling, choked with feigned tears. Grace, did you book the tickets? When are we leaving? She asked impatiently. Eleanor, I'm so scared. I just got a call. A call from who? Spit it out. Someone called me. They said Mike owes some loan sharks $150,000. They said he fled to Florida to escape the debt. Now they know I'm planning to go find him, and they threatened to stop me at the airport. They said if I don't pay them, I'll never leave Chicago, and I'll never bring Mike's body home. I spun the tale smoothly. I knew Eleanor's weaknesses, her obsession with appearances and her superstitions. The thought of her son's body not receiving a proper burial, becoming a wandering ghost, would terrify her. $150,000? What did he borrow that much money for? Oh, God. I don't know. They mentioned principal and interest. They're watching my condo building right now, Eleanor. I can't go outside. I don't think I can go to Florida. We'll have to. Leave Mike there. I'm too scared to die. Are you crazy? Your husband is lying there waiting for you, and you're just going to abandon him? Eleanor screamed. But where am I going to get $150,000? We still have a mortgage on the condo. The line went silent for a moment. I could hear her whispering urgently to someone. It had to be Kevin. Stay put. Let me figure something out. Just stay in your apartment and don't do anything stupid. Eleanor hung up. I put the phone down and winked at David. The fish is on the hook. She's terrified of losing the $2 million payout she thinks she'll get a piece of if I don't go to Florida and have my accident. Compared to $2 million, $150,000 will seem like a bargain. David shook his head, a wry smile on his face. You're a hell of an actress, Grace. I'm starting to be a little scared of you. Life forced me to be, I replied. If I don't act, I'll be the one coming home from Florida in a box. I stood up and looked out at the flowing Chicago River. A storm was brewing outside. Dark clouds were rolling in. A storm was coming indeed, but this time I would be the one directing the wind. David walked me to the door, his expression still worried. I knew he was concerned, but this was no time for hesitation. I waved to him and stepped into the elevator, feeling the slight jolt as it began its descent. Just as I stepped out of the building's lobby, my phone rang. It was Eleanor. As I predicted, the time it took for greed to overcome stinginess was shorter than I'd thought. I answered, my voice still trembling with practiced panic. Hello, Eleanor? What should I do? I don't think I can go. They just texted me a threat. They said they'd throw acid on me if I leave my apartment without the money. On the other end, Eleanor's voice was rushed and breathless, as if she'd been running. Calm down and listen to me. I got the money. Kevin and I just scraped it all together. Where are you? Come to my house right now. I can't. I'm hiding at a friend's place. Are you sure you have it? It's $150,000. I said I have it. Just get over here. Kevin said he'll take you to the airport himself. With him there, those thugs won't dare to do anything. If you don't come home and go get Michael, I'll kill myself, I swear. I hid a smirk, but my voice remained tearful. Okay. I'll get a cab. Please wait for me. I hung up and hailed a taxi to Eleanor's house, a spacious 3-story home in a nice neighborhood in Evanston. It was her biggest asset and the house where Mike and Kevin grew up. When I walked into the living room, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Eleanor sat on the sofa, her face flushed, clutching a black duffel bag. Kevin sat next to her, his leg bouncing nervously, his eyes darting toward the door. Here's the money, Eleanor said, pushing the bag toward me. This is from my savings account. I had to withdraw it early, plus the money from the sale of the old family property. Kevin's contribution. And my wedding gold. Count it. It's $150,000. I opened the bag. Inside were stacks of crisp $100 bills, the smell of fresh ink filling the air. Next to them were several gold bracelets wrapped in newspaper. I looked at Eleanor, then at Kevin. His eyes were full of regret at seeing the money go, but also a glimmer of calculation. He was certain this small investment would yield a $2 million return. Eleanor, this is so much cash. How can I carry this to them? They said to wire it to an intermediary account. I pushed the bag back. Wire it? Kevin interjected, his voice harsh. Are you stupid? You want a paper trail? These guys only take cash. But they texted me an account number, I said, holding up my phone. On the screen was a text I had sent myself from a burner SIM. The message contained the account number for a shell corporation David had set up. Kevin snatched the phone, read the text, and swore under his breath. Damn it, what kind of amateurs are these? Fine, just do the transfer. Do it now so you can get to the airport. I already booked the tickets for you and Mom. 6 p.m. flight tonight. So he'd already bought the tickets. He wanted me gone as soon as possible, but my online banking has a transfer limit this high. I feigned confusion. Then go to the bank, Eleanor shouted. Stop wasting time, Grace. Michael is lying cold in some morgue down there. Go to the bank now. Kevin shot up, grabbing the bag of money. Come on, I'll drive you. We'll deposit the cash into their account. Let's go. I nodded and followed him. Sitting in the passenger seat of his speeding car, I could feel his impatience. He was dreaming of me having a fatal accident in Florida, so he could cash in on the $2 million policy. He had no idea this $150,000 was the first tuition payment for his own stupidity. At the bank, we went to the teller. I filled out the deposit slip for the designated account. Kevin stood right beside me, watching my every move, his eyes glued to the teller's hands as she counted the cash. There, it's done, Kevin said as the teller stamped the receipt. You satisfied now? They got their money. They'll leave you alone. Let's go home and get your luggage for the airport. I carefully folded the receipt and put it in my wallet. Okay, I'll just go get my passport. Is Mom coming with me? Yes, she's coming. I don't trust you. What if you just run off? Kevin said bluntly. I didn't reply, just walked quietly out of the bank. The afternoon sun was setting, replaced by the yellow glow of streetlights. $150,000 was now safely in an account controlled by David. The money would be used to cover legal fees, with a portion donated to charity in Mike's name later. A final good deed before he went to prison. After the bank, Kevin drove me back to my condo to get my luggage. He didn't dare come up, waiting in the lobby and chain smoking. He was afraid of being caught on security cameras at my apartment just before my murder. The caution of an amateur criminal made me want to laugh. I went upstairs and grabbed the pre-packed suitcase. Before leaving, I texted David. Money secured. Initiate phase 2. He replied instantly with a thumbs-up emoji. I knew he was ready to activate the legal proceedings to freeze Mike's assets as soon as I confirmed I was on my way. I dragged my suitcase to the lobby. Kevin gave me a sharp look. Done? Let's go. Mom's waiting at her place. I called a car to pick her up and go straight to the airport. Aren't you coming to see Mike off? I asked, intentionally prodding him. Kevin flinched, avoiding my gaze. I'm busy, and I don't have a passport. You and Mom can handle it. Call me with any news. Okay, you take care of things here. Don't forget to light a candle for Mike if they don't find his body. My words made his face darken. He growled, "What are you talking about? Let's just go." The car picked up Eleanor, and we headed straight for O'Hare. In the car, Eleanor sat in silence, her fingers working a rosary, her lips moving in a silent prayer. She had just lost a huge sum of money and was now anxious about the long trip. I looked at her and thought, pray all you want, but no God will bless the greedy heart of your family. At the airport, Kevin dropped us at the departures curb. He shoved the plane tickets and a hotel reservation into my hand. Go to this hotel when you get there. A friend of mine will contact you to help out. You'd better take care of my brother. Don't you worry, I said, looking him straight in the eye. I'll take very good care of him. I emphasized the last few words. Kevin got back in the car and drove off, without even saying goodbye to his mother. His silhouette disappeared into the stream of traffic. He was rushing back to prepare for the next act of his drama, or perhaps to celebrate prematurely. He didn't know this might be the last time he breathed the air of freedom. Eleanor and I checked in. Since we were traveling last minute, we didn't have much luggage. After clearing security, Eleanor started complaining. This airport is huge. My feet are killing me. Help me walk. I patiently supported her. The role of the dutiful daughter-in-law had to continue until the curtain fell. In the departure lounge, I checked my bank account on my phone. The $150,000 had been transferred to a more secure account. I texted Jessica, "I'm at the airport. Don't worry, I'll find Mike and get your money back." She didn't reply, but the message was marked as read. She was probably busy with her own plans to loot my home. The boarding call for our flight to Miami echoed through the terminal. I stood up, steeling myself. This flight wasn't just taking me to Florida, it was taking me into a fight for my life. But I wasn't afraid. My luggage contained more than just clothes. It held the resilience of a woman pushed to the edge. The plane took off, leaving the glittering lights of Chicago below. Eleanor sat beside me, her eyes squeezed shut, her hands gripping the armrests. It was her first time flying in years. "Grace, are you scared? What if the plane crashes?" she asked, trembling. "Don't worry, Eleanor. The probability of a plane crash is far lower than winning the Powerball jackpot," I replied, a professional habit. She glared at me. "You and your numbers. Your husband is dead, and you're sitting here calculating probabilities." I fell silent and turned to the window. Outside was a pitch-black night. I remembered the few happy months after Mike and I first married. He had made so many promises, painting a beautiful picture of a perfect family. It was all a lie. His character was rotten from the core, nurtured by his mother's blind indulgence and his own vices. The flight was just over 3 hours. When we landed at Miami International Airport, it was past 9 p.m. local time. I had rented a car to drive down to the Keys. In the rental car garage, I checked my phone. A message from Sophia. "Mike's buddy is here. He got to the Keys yesterday. Staying at a motel near the party zone. Saw him with another guy. Looks like some kind of thug." I froze. "Mike's buddy? Who?" I texted back. "Are you sure?" Sophia sent a candid photo. In it, a skinny guy with arm tattoos was eating at a food truck. It was Rico, a low-level enforcer Kevin sometimes used for his gambling debts. What was he doing here? He must have been sent to help Mike stage my accident. So, Kevin was still in Chicago watching me, while Rico was sent to be Mike's muscle in Florida. A clear division of labor. "Are you hungry, Eleanor? Should I get you something to eat?" I asked. "How can I eat at a time like this? I'm exhausted. When will we get there?" "Soon, just a little longer." I bought 2 bottles of water and some pastries. In my head, I was mapping out the forces. The enemy, Mike and Rico in Florida, Kevin and Jessica directing from Chicago. My team, me, Eleanor, currently a liability, David providing legal support from afar, and Sophia as my local scout. I needed to isolate Rico. If he was the one meant to get his hands dirty, I had to make sure he couldn't get near me. The drive down the overseas highway was dark, with the ocean on both sides. A light rain began to fall, and that feeling of unease returned. I gripped the steering wheel, telling myself, "You can do this, Grace. You've calculated all the variables." When we arrived in Islamorada, a wave of hot, humid air washed over us as we got out of the car, the salty smell of the sea mixed with the scent of tropical flowers. Sophia was waiting in the lobby of the hotel Kevin had booked. She wore shorts, a t-shirt, and a baseball cap pulled low over her face. She waved but didn't call my name, avoiding attention. "Welcome. The car is parked outside," Sophia said in a low voice, playing the part for Eleanor's benefit. "Who are you?" Eleanor asked suspiciously. "I'm a friend of one of Mike's business partners here. He asked me to help you both out." I quickly invented. Sophia winked at me and took Eleanor's bag, leading us to our room. As soon as we got inside, Eleanor collapsed onto the bed, exhausted. I waited until she was sound asleep, then tiptoed out to the balcony and called Sophia, who was waiting at a coffee shop across the street. "What do you think of this place?" Sophia asked. "Security is lax. The balcony is easy to climb, perfect for staging a break-in or a fall," I observed coldly. "Exactly. Enrico is checked into the room directly below you. Room 304. You're in 404. Good. Let him be. For now, I have something to take care of back in the States." I opened the security camera app on my phone. Just as I expected, with me gone, my condo had become Jessica's playground. On the screen, a clear infrared image of my living room appeared. Jessica was there, wearing a flimsy nightgown and holding a glass of wine, Mike's wine. She paraded around like she owned the place, raiding the liquor cabinet and the TV stand. She stuffed expensive bottles of wine, Mike's PS5, and even the robotic vacuum into a large bag. Then, she went into my bedroom. She opened my closet, pulling out my designer handbags to admire herself in the mirror before grabbing all of my perfumes and cosmetics. I hit the screen record button. This brazen theft would be a wonderful gift for Kevin. I found Kevin's number and sent him the video with a message. "Kevin, I was just checking the cameras to make sure the condo was okay and saw this. Jess said she was just house-sitting, but it looks like she's moving out. With all our stuff, I think she's trying to open Mike's safe now." I added the detail about the safe to provoke him. I knew Kevin was possessive about family property, especially now that he was deep in debt and considered his brother's assets his own. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Kevin was calling. I ignored it. I let him call 3 more times before texting back. "Sorry, I'm at the hotel. The signal is terrible. You need to do something. I think Jess is clearing the place out." I sent another video clip. This time, Jessica was fiddling with the safe in the bedroom. In reality, she didn't know the combination and was just trying her luck. Back in Chicago, Kevin must have been losing his mind. He would assume Jessica and Mike were conspiring to cut him out of the deal. Mistrust among thieves is always their greatest weakness. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, I saw the front door on the camera feed burst open. Kevin stormed in, his face red with rage, a baseball bat in his hand. "You bitch! What the hell do you think you're doing?" he roared, charging at Jessica. Jessica screamed, dropping a bottle of wine that shattered on the floor. "Kevin, what are you doing here?" Mike told me to. "Mike told you what? To empty my brother's house? You trying to take everything for yourself?" Kevin grabbed Jessica by the hair and slapped her hard across the face. She started crying and begging. The chaotic scene played out before me on my tiny phone screen. I smiled and saved the entire video. This was evidence of breaking and entering and assault. With this, I could send them both to jail, or at the very least, let them tear each other apart. I turned off my phone and went back into the room. Eleanor was still snoring. She had no idea that back home, her precious younger son was beating up her older son's mistress in the very home she used to boast about to her neighbors. Tomorrow, when the sun rose over the Florida Keys, my play would truly begin. The next morning, I woke Eleanor early. She groaned, complaining of a sore back and a headache. "Grace, just call the sheriff and tell them to find Michael. I'm too tired for this." "Get up and have some breakfast, Eleanor. Then we're going to see a lawyer. They said they have a lead on Mike." I lied. "Really? He's alive?" Eleanor shot up like a spring, her eyes wide. I don't know for sure, but they said they need a family member to verify some information. We went down to the hotel lobby. Sophia was already waiting with an old pickup truck. Good morning. Please, get in. The truck drove along the coastal road. The morning sun glittered on the turquoise sea. A strong sea breeze carried the salty air. The scenery was paradise, but our destination was something else entirely. Instead of a police station or a hospital, Sophia took us to a law office in Key West. This was David's local contact. Why are we here? Aren't we going to look for Michael? Eleanor asked, confused by the law office's sign. We need to come in here first, Eleanor. We need to handle the legal paperwork so they can help expedite the search. The police here work slowly. A lawyer's involvement will speed things up, I explained vaguely. Eleanor, for whom the law was a mysterious and intimidating thing, immediately trusted me and followed without another word. A local attorney named Mr. Sanchez greeted us. He spoke excellent English, and Sophia acted as a supplemental interpreter. Mrs. Evans, Miss Evans, we've received the file from Mr. David in Chicago. We are proceeding with the petition to have Mr. Michael Evans declared missing under special circumstances to freeze his assets. However, we've just received some interesting information from the Coast Guard. Mr. Sanchez pushed a folder across the desk towards me. Inside were printouts from a security camera at a small marina, far from the tourist areas. In the photo, a man with a build exactly like Mike's was boarding a fishing boat. He wore a baseball cap pulled low and a face mask, but his slightly stooped posture and the watch on his wrist were unmistakable. It was the watch I had given him for our last anniversary. When was this picture taken? I asked, my heart pounding. 2 days after Mr. Evans was reported missing. So, yesterday, Mr. Sanchez replied. He's alive! He's alive! Eleanor cried out, looking at the picture with tears streaming down her face. Thank God! My son, I'm here! I gripped Eleanor's hand tightly. Eleanor, be calm. If he's alive, why hasn't he called us? Why is he sneaking onto a fishing boat? My questions were like a splash of cold water on her. She looked bewildered. You're right. Why didn't he call me? Was he kidnapped? Does he have amnesia? No, Eleanor. Look at his posture. He's moving with purpose. He's running away, I said, my voice hardening. Running from who? The loan sharks. Eleanor remembered the story I had fabricated. Perhaps. Or from something much worse. I turned to Mr. Sanchez. Do you know where this boat was headed? According to its registration, it was heading towards a remote part of the coast. From there, one can cross into international waters. However, we have already alerted the Coast Guard. The boat is currently docked at a fishing village for engine repairs. Which village? I asked. A place called Flamingo, about an hour's drive from here. I shot to my feet. Let's go, Eleanor. We're going to get Mike before the police do. I wanted to see him first. I wanted to see the look on his face when his perfect plan fell apart. I wanted to be the one to rip his mask off in front of his mother. Sophia drove us away from the law office, speeding along the winding roads. Eleanor sat in the back, muttering prayers, a mix of joy and anxiety. As for me, I felt only a cold excitement. The prey was injured and trapped, and the hunter was closing in. The old pickup truck sped along the serpentine road. On one side, dense mangroves. On the other, the turquoise Gulf of Mexico sparkled under the midday sun. The view was breathtaking, but the atmosphere inside the truck was as tense as a drawn bowstring. Eleanor sat silently, her hands clenched on the seat in front of her, staring out at the road. She was imagining a tearful reunion with her precious son. I, on the other hand, was glued to my phone, waiting for a confirmation text from David. Ping. A message arrived. Done. The court has issued an emergency order freezing all of Michael Evans's accounts, as well as related accounts, based on suspicion of money laundering and insurance fraud. His credit cards are now useless pieces of plastic. I let out a quiet sigh of relief. The most critical step was complete. Mike was now penniless. He couldn't withdraw cash, couldn't pay for a hotel, couldn't buy a bus ticket. He was trapped. Just then, Sophia's phone rang. She put it on speaker, her eyes still on the road. Hello, Sophia speaking. A man's gruff, urgent voice came through. Sophia, It's Rico. Kevin just flew in this morning. He's furious, demanding to find Mike. He says Mike and that girl Jessica cheated him. I was startled. Kevin was in Florida? So, after their domestic battle last night, he couldn't sit still. Suspicion and greed had pushed him to fly down immediately to demand his share, or perhaps to deal with the brother he believed had betrayed him. Sophia glanced at me in the rearview mirror. I nodded, signaling her to keep talking. So where is Kevin now? He's with me. We're renting a car and heading south. He heard a rumor that Mike is hiding somewhere near Flamingo. Do you have any info? I do. I'm heading there myself. I heard Mike is in the fishing village there. Meet me at the main pier. Sophia hung up and winked at me. Full house, Grace. Kevin is on his way. Hearing her son's name, Eleanor leaned forward. What? Kevin is here? How? He said he didn't have a passport. He must have been so worried about Mike that he got a last-minute flight. Eleanor, I said, my voice dripping with an irony she didn't detect. See? That's how much the brothers love each other. Oh, my dear boys, so the whole family can be reunited, Eleanor said, her eyes welling up with emotion. I turned away to hide a smirk. Reunited? Yes, reunited to tear each other to pieces. I opened my messages to David and typed another line. Prepare Plan B. If the police are late, I need you to intervene remotely to keep them there. The truck started to enter a new area. Unlike the glitz of the main quays, Flamingo was wilder, more rustic. Fishing boats were moored side by side, and the strong smell of fish hung in the hot, humid air. I pointed to a cluster of ramshackle houses by the water. According to the last ping from Mike's phone that the private investigator sent, he's in this area. Eleanor looked at the slum-like dwellings, her face wrinkling in disgust. Why would he be here? My son is a businessman on vacation. You forget, Eleanor. He's on the run from loan sharks. He can't exactly check into the Four Seasons, can he? The truck stopped at the edge of a narrow alley. We got out, the heat rising from the asphalt in waves. I adjusted my sunglasses and my purse. Inside wasn't just my wallet, but a secret weapon. A fake IOU I had prepared to corner Mike completely. The cat-and-mouse game was over. It was time for the cat to pounce. We didn't go straight into the village. Instead, we stopped at a roadside stall to observe. From here, we had a clear view of the pier, where old fishing boats bobbed on the waves. Eleanor was anxious to rush in and find her son, but I held her back. Be patient, Eleanor. If we rush in and he thinks we're the creditors, he might run. We need to assess the situation first. About 15 minutes later, a red convertible screeched to a halt not far from us. Two men got out. One was skinny, tan, with tattoos covering his arms, Rico. The other was heavier, wearing a loud Hawaiian shirt, sweat pouring down his face, his expression murderous. It was Kevin. As soon as he got out of the car, Kevin started swearing, kicking at a fish basket on the side of the road, earning annoyed looks from the local fishermen. Damn it, it's hot as an oven here. Where is he? You said he was here, Kevin yelled at Rico. Easy, boss. The tracker says he's around here somewhere. Let me ask the locals. Rico pulled out his phone and showed Mike's picture to a woman selling fish. She squinted, then pointed down the dark, narrow alley leading to the water's edge. Look, it's Kevin! Eleanor started to call out, but I quickly covered her mouth. Be quiet. Do you want Kevin to get to Mike first? Can't you see there's something strange about his attitude? Strange? He's just worried about his brother. She tried to pull away. I held her arm tighter, whispering coldly in her ear. Look closer, Eleanor. What is Kevin holding in his hand? Eleanor squinted. In Kevin's hand was a long, sharp fishing knife he must have swiped from a stall they passed. Or perhaps he brought it with him. Oh my God, why does he have a knife? Eleanor gasped in horror. I told you. Kevin and Jessica are in this together to steal Mike's assets. Now that Mike is alive, their plan is ruined. He's here to silence him for good. I lied, my words hitting Eleanor's deepest fears. Her legs went weak, and her face turned pale. What do we do, Grace? You stay right here. I'll handle this. I took out my phone and texted an unknown number a burner SIM I had prepared to play the role of the mysterious informant. Mike is in shack #7 at the end of the alley, the blue one with the clothesline out front. Be careful, his wife and the old woman are coming. I sent the message to Kevin. Instantly, I saw him look down at his phone. He looked up, his eyes wild, and signaled to Rico. They both sprinted down the alley. They're on the move. Let's follow them, Eleanor, I said, pulling her to her feet. Sophia followed behind us, whispering, You're wicked, Grace. Are you trying to get them to kill each other? I'm just helping them resolve their internal conflicts, I replied with a grim smile. One stone, two birds. We followed Kevin and Rico at a safe distance. The sound of their heavy footsteps and curses echoed in the narrow alley. The stench of rotting fish and swamp was overwhelming. This was the perfect hiding spot for a fugitive like Mike, but also the perfect trap to bury him. The uninvited guests had arrived. The party was about to begin. Shack #7 was perched precariously on wooden stilts driven into the black mud of the shoreline. It was a makeshift structure of rusted tin and plywood, with a roof of decaying palm fronds. The midday sun beat down on the tin roof, making the air inside an oven. Mike was in there. I could picture him, the once dapper businessman, now stripped to his shorts, sweating profusely, counting his last few dollars and cursing the tropical heat. He was undoubtedly waiting for news from Kevin or Jessica that I had arrived in Florida and met with an accident. He had no idea the accident was coming for him. Kevin and Rico reached the door. Kevin didn't knock. He kicked it hard. Crack! The flimsy wooden door burst open. They stormed inside like wild animals. You bastard! Hiding pretty good, huh? Kevin's roar filled the air. Eleanor tried to run after them, but I held her back, pushing her behind a pile of old fishing nets. Wait here and listen. If you go in now, you'll be the one getting stabbed. From inside, we heard the crash of things being thrown around, and then Mike's voice, trembling but trying to sound tough. Kevin, what are you doing here? You should be in Chicago. Chicago my ass, Kevin screamed. You trying to play me? You said you'd fake your death. We'd split the insurance money. But now Jessica is cleaning out your entire condo. Where's the cash you hid? Give it to me. Jess cleaned out the condo? How would I know? I'm stuck here. My cards are all blocked, Mike pleaded. Don't lie to me. You and her cooked this up to cut me out, didn't you? I know your game. If I don't get the money today, I'll make sure you die for real. I looked at Eleanor. She was covering her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. The words of her precious sons were like daggers piercing her heart. She finally understood. There was no accident, no death, only a fraudulent scheme born from the bottomless greed of the children she had raised. Do you hear that, Eleanor? I whispered. That's the truth. Eleanor slumped like a wilted leaf. She wasn't crying anymore, just a dry, rasping sob caught in her throat. The truth was too cruel for her to accept. Inside, the argument escalated. I swear I don't know anything. Call Jessica and ask her, Mike yelled. I'll break your damn face. Where's the money? Give me your wallet. We heard scuffling, the thud of punches, and Mike's cry of pain. Boss, easy. If you kill him, who's going to sign the transfer papers? Rico's voice intervened. If he's dead, I'm the beneficiary on the policy. Even better, Kevin screamed, completely unhinged. At that moment, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. If Kevin actually killed Mike, my plan would be ruined. I needed Mike alive to face justice, to rot in a prison cell, not to get a quick death. I signaled to Sophia. She nodded, took out her phone, and dialed 911. Eleanor, it's time for us to go in. Go save your son, I said, pulling her up and walking toward the shack. The bright sun was blinding, but I didn't squint. I was looking straight at the ending I had so carefully orchestrated. I pushed the door open. The scene inside was a battlefield. Furniture was overturned. An old fan whirred uselessly, doing nothing to combat the oppressive heat. Mike was curled up on the floor, his face swollen, blood dripping from his nose. Kevin stood over him, panting, the knife still in his hand, though thankfully he hadn't used it. Rico stood guard by the window. Our arrival stunned them all into silence. Time seemed to stop. "Mom!" Mike choked out, his voice distorted by pain and shock. He looked at me as if he'd seen a ghost. According to his script, I shouldn't have even arrived yet, or I should already be dead. "Oh, my son!" Eleanor could hold back no longer. She rushed to Mike, hugging him and sobbing. "How did it come to this?" Kevin stumbled back, his face paling. "Mom, why are you here?" "And Grace, you." I calmly walked in and shut the door behind me, blocking the only exit. I took off my sunglasses and looked from Kevin to Mike. "Hello, everyone. Quite a party. A family reunion, and you didn't even invite me." You knew all along?" Mike stammered, trying to sit up but collapsing again in pain. "Knew what? That you faked your death to commit insurance fraud? That you planned to have me murdered here in Florida? Or that you and your brother were about to kill each other over the money?" I listed their sins one by one, my voice as even as if I were reading a financial report. Each word was a slap in their faces. Kevin glared at me. "You bitch. You set me up. That anonymous text, that was you, wasn't it?" "Smart boy," I sneered. A little late, though. Enraged, Kevin lunged at me, raising the knife. "I'll kill you," Eleanor screamed. But I didn't flinch. Rico, who was closest, suddenly moved to block Kevin's arm. "What are you doing? Let me go!" Kevin yelled. Rico looked at me, then back at Kevin, shaking his head. "It's over, boss. She's already called the cops. If you kill someone now, you're getting life." "I'm just a debt collector, not a lifer." Rico wasn't stupid. He saw the tables had turned. My confident demeanor meant I held all the cards. "That's right. The police are on their way. Should be here in about 5 minutes," I said, checking my watch. "You all have 5 minutes to say your goodbyes." Hearing the word police, Mike's face went ashen. He crawled over to me and grabbed my leg, begging, "Grace, please, save me. I was wrong. It was Kevin's idea. I never wanted to hurt you. Just tell the police it was all a misunderstanding. I'll pay back everything. I'll start over." I looked down at the pathetic man who was once my husband. His cowardice made me sick. A minute ago, he was plotting my murder. Now he was blaming his brother for everything. "What did you say?" Hearing this, Kevin exploded, kicking Mike away. "You were the mastermind. You told me to forge the papers. You told me to find someone to take care of Grace, and now you blame me?" The two brothers started fighting again, this time not for money, but for survival, each trying to pin the blame on the other. Eleanor stood between them, crying hysterically, trying to intervene but getting shoved into a corner. I leaned against the door, my arms crossed, watching the scene of brotherly betrayal unfold. This was the sweetest revenge. I didn't have to lift a finger. Their own greed and selfishness would destroy them. "Enough!" I yelled, my sharp voice startling all three of them into silence. I walked over and threw the folder of photocopies on the floor in front of Mike. "Take a good look. This is the court order freezing your assets. This is the proof you forged my signature on the insurance policy. And this is the video of Jessica cleaning out your condo. You've lost everything, Mike. No money, no love, no brother, no family." Mike picked up the papers, his hands shaking uncontrollably. He looked at me, his eyes filled with utter despair. "Grace, how? How did you do this? How?" I leaned down, my face close to his, and whispered, "Because I'm an actuary. My risk calculations are much better than yours. Your biggest mistake was treating me like a number on your spreadsheet, forgetting that I was the one holding the pen." The wail of police sirens grew louder, coming from the end of the alley. The piercing sound tore through the oppressive silence of the fishing village. The Monroe County Sheriff's deputies swarmed in quickly, guns drawn. Sophia was with the commanding officer, pointing at the 3 men in the room. "Arrest all of them," the officer ordered. Mike, Kevin, and Rico didn't resist. They meekly put their hands up to be cuffed. Seeing her sons being arrested, Eleanor rushed forward, grabbing the officer's leg, wailing and begging. "Please, sir, let my sons go. They were just foolish. They didn't do anything." The officer gently but firmly pushed her away. I helped Eleanor up and guided her to a chair. "Eleanor, don't. They're just doing their job. Grace, save your husband. Tell them to let him go. I'm begging you. I'll get on my knees," she cried, clasping her hands as if in prayer to me. I looked at her without a shred of pity. "I can't save them. The law isn't a game. You should be glad they were caught. If Mike had escaped with those loan sharks back home, he'd be dead one way or another. At least in prison, he'll stay alive." Eleanor collapsed, sobbing silently. She knew I was right. There was no way out. The police led the 3 criminals to their vehicle. As Mike passed me, he kept his head down, unable to meet my eyes. Kevin shot me a look full of hatred and fear. Enrico just muttered a string of curses, regretting the day he got involved with this disastrous family. Sophia and I watched as the car doors closed and it drove away, kicking up a cloud of dust. "It's over," Sophia said, exhaling in relief. "What's your next move?" "I need to finalize the legal paperwork. I'll stay a few days to give my statement to the police and lawyers. Then I'm going back to Chicago to deal with the last loose end." "Jessica?" Sophia asked. "Her. She's still happily spending my money in Chicago. It's time she learned a lesson." I turned to Eleanor. She was still sitting on the ground, looking like a lost soul. "Get up, Eleanor. Let's go back to the hotel. Tomorrow, I'll take you to the station to arrange for visiting or sending things to Mike." Eleanor looked up at me, her eyes a complex mixture of resentment, fear, and a newfound dependence. I was the only one left who was clear-headed and had the resources to handle anything. "Grace, you planned all of this from the beginning, didn't you?" I didn't answer her question. I just extended a hand to help her up. "Eleanor, in the insurance business, there's a principle called utmost good faith. When that principle is broken, the contract is void." My marriage to Mike was the same. I helped Eleanor to the car. The afternoon sun had softened, but the sea still roared. The storm inside me had passed, leaving behind the cold peace of someone who had walked through the wreckage to reclaim her freedom. The curtain had fallen on the play in Florida, but the stage in Chicago was waiting for me to return and clean up the final act. The next morning, I went with Mr. Sanchez and Sophia to the sheriff's station to finalize the report. Eleanor insisted on coming, but the sight of a disheveled Mike in a holding cell made her faint, so I had Sophia take her back to the hotel. In the interrogation room, Mike was a broken man. The arrogant swagger was gone, replaced by the fear of a failed con artist. Facing federal prison time for fraud, he confessed to everything. He detailed the insurance scheme, the faked death, and most importantly, he spelled out Jessica's role. He admitted that Jessica had helped him connect with the forgers and that she was holding a portion of the cash he had siphoned off before his trip. I sat and listened, recording his entire confession with the permission of the police. This was the final weapon I needed. "Grace, I'm begging you," Mike said, his voice cracking as he looked at me through the partition glass, tears streaming down his face. "I told them everything. Can you ask for a lighter sentence?" "I promise, when I get back to Chicago, I'll sign the divorce papers. You can have the condo." I stared at him, my expression unmoved. "That condo is in my name. You have nothing to give me. As for the divorce, the court will grant it on grounds of abandonment and felony conviction. You just focus on behaving yourself in prison. No one's going to wait on you in there." I walked out of the station. The Florida sun was still brilliant, but my mind was already in Chicago. A venomous snake was still loose, and it needed to be defanged. I called David. "It's done here. I have Mike's confession, implicating Jessica as an accomplice and for possession of stolen property. Get the official complaint ready. I'm flying home tomorrow." "Get back here quick," David said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Jessica is selling your designer handbags on Poshmark, says they were unwanted gifts." I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. The audacity. Jessica still thought I was dead or stranded in Florida, and that Mike and Kevin were too busy to notice a few handbags. She had no idea that every one of her actions was being documented as evidence against her. "Let her sell them," I said. "The more she sells, the longer her sentence." I went back to the hotel to get Eleanor. She was huddled on the bed, her eyes puffy. "We're leaving tomorrow?" she asked, her voice raspy. "What about Michael and Kevin?" "They have to pay for their crimes here, Eleanor. They'll face charges in Florida and then in Illinois. You should go home and take care of your health so you can visit them in prison." Eleanor nodded, not daring to argue. She was completely dependent on me now. The arrogant mother-in-law was gone, replaced by a lonely, helpless old woman. The flight landed at O'Hare in the middle of a sudden afternoon downpour. I dropped Eleanor at her house, gave her some simple instructions, and took a taxi straight to my condo. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I wanted to give Jessica a surprise. I got to my floor. The hallway was quiet. I stood before my own front door, took a deep breath, and inserted my key. It didn't turn. She had changed the locks. I smiled. Did she really think changing a lock made the home hers? She forgot that my name was on the deed. Furthermore, this was a high-end condo building. Any changes to locks or security had to go through building management. I went down to the management office, presented my proof of ownership, and reported an unauthorized person squatting in my unit and illegally changing the locks. The manager immediately dispatched security and a locksmith to accompany me. "This Miss Miller said she was your cousin, here to house sit," the manager explained. "She even showed us a letter of authorization signed by your husband." "A forged signature, I'm sure," I said. "My husband is currently in a Florida jail for forgery. It's unlikely he signed anything for her in Chicago." The manager's face went pale. He quickly instructed the locksmith to drill the lock. The screech of the drill was deafening. The door popped open. Inside, Jessica was lounging on my sofa with a cucumber mask on her face, listening to classical music. When the door flew open and a group of people stormed in, she shot up, sending cucumber slices flying. "What are you doing? How dare you break into my home?" she shrieked, not yet seeing me behind the security guards. "Your home?" I stepped forward, taking off my sunglasses. "Are you awake, Jessica, or are you still dreaming?" The sight of me made the blood drain from her face. She stumbled backward, tripping over the coffee table. "Grace! How? You're here?" I thought, "You thought I was dead in Florida, or maybe kidnapped? Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm very much alive, and I've come back to reclaim my home. I was just looking after the place for Mike," she stammered. "Looking after it by changing the locks? Looking after it by selling my clothes online? Looking after it by, where did all the electronics go?" I pointed at the empty shelves. "Gentlemen, please witness this. She has been stealing my property. Please detain her while I call the police." At the mention of the police, Jessica fell to her knees, sobbing and begging. "Grace, please, forgive me. It was a mistake. Mike told me to do it. He said you weren't coming back and told me to sell things to send him the money." "That's funny. Mike's official statement in Florida tells a very different story. He said you were the one who pushed him into it. You two can sort out your stories for the judge." The Chicago police arrived quickly, as David had already given them a heads up. Jessica was led away in handcuffs, humiliated as residents of the building came out to watch and whisper. The glamorous influencer was now a common criminal. I stood in the middle of my ransacked apartment, feeling an odd emptiness. The things I lost could be replaced. The trust I lost was gone forever. But that was okay. I would rebuild. A new life, free from the shadows of betrayal. The following days were spent cleaning up the mess. I hired a professional cleaning crew to sanitize the entire apartment. I threw out everything that reminded me of Mike, his clothes, his books, the wedding photos on the wall. They all went into garbage bags. I replaced all the bedroom furniture. I couldn't bear to sleep in the bed that my treacherous husband had slept in. David helped me with the legal proceedings against Jessica. With the mountain of evidence, I had the security footage, the text messages, Mike's confession, and catching her red-handed, she stood no chance. She was charged with trespassing, theft, and conspiracy. Eleanor called me occasionally, her voice weak, asking for news about her sons. I gave her the facts, concisely and without emotion. I also used a portion of the $150,000 to pay her back and gave her the rest for living expenses, a final gesture as a daughter-in-law before the divorce was official. I made it clear it was her money I had been safekeeping so her sons couldn't waste it on gambling or women. She just cried and thanked me. Perhaps only now, at the end of her life, did she realize who had truly cared for her. One evening, I sat on my balcony, watching the bustling city below. My phone rang. It was Sophia, calling from Florida. "Grace, the preliminary trial is over here. Mike got 2 years, and Kevin got 1 for public disturbance and illegal entry. They'll be extradited to Illinois for the federal charges after they serve their time." "Thank you, Sophia. You've been a great help." "Don't mention it. Seeing them get what they deserved was a relief for me, too. A little bit of justice for what happened years ago. By the way, I sent you a little gift. Check your messages." I opened the message. It was a photo of Mike and Kevin in prison. Their heads were shaved, and they were wearing orange jumpsuits, sitting on the floor eating. They looked pathetic and thin, all their former arrogance gone. I looked at the photo without smiling or crying, feeling only a strange sense of peace. The price of greed and betrayal is always steep. I deleted the photo. I didn't need to keep such ugly images in my memory. I stood up and stretched. The evening breeze blew through my hair. Tomorrow, I would file for divorce. 2 years later, the trial for the fraud case of Michael Evans and his accomplices was held in Chicago. Mike and Kevin had been extradited after serving their sentences in Florida and were arrested the moment they landed at O'Hare. I attended the trial as the victim and key witness. I wore a simple white dress, looking confident and serene. In the defendant's box, Mike, Kevin, and Jessica stood with their heads bowed. 2 years in prison had aged Mike terribly. His hair was graying, his back stooped. Kevin was rail-thin, his eyes sunken. Jessica was equally worn down after her time in jail. Eleanor sat in the audience, sobbing when she saw her sons. I sat a few rows away, giving her a slight nod when she looked over, but keeping my distance. The judge questioned the defendants. Mike admitted to everything, his voice barely a whisper. He confessed to the entire scheme. Kevin and Jessica, faced with the overwhelming evidence, could not deny their involvement. When the judge invited me to speak, I stood and said clearly, "Your Honor, I am not seeking financial compensation. What they took from me was not just money, but trust and love. I only ask that the court deliver a just sentence, one that will serve as a deterrent to others who hold human life and the law in such low regard." After deliberation, the judge read the verdict. Michael Evans, 12 years in federal prison for conspiracy to commit murder for hire, wire fraud, and insurance fraud. Kevin Evans, 3 years for his role as an accomplice. Jessica Miller, 3 years for conspiracy and theft. The sound of the gavel was final. As they were led away, Mike looked back at me one last time, his eyes full of a regret that came far too late. I walked out of the courthouse into the bright Chicago sun. David was waiting for me at the entrance, smiling. "It's over, Grace. You're officially free." "Thank you, David. I couldn't have done it without you. What are friends for? So, where to now?" "The beach," I said. "I need to breathe some fresh air." I chose Hawaii for my vacation. I rented a small bungalow right on the water, where the sound of the waves was a constant, soothing presence. In the mornings, I woke up early to watch the sunrise. The sea was a deep blue, and the sun rose like a fiery orb, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. I walked along the shore, my bare feet sinking into the soft sand. The waves lapped at my ankles, cool and refreshing. I thought about the past few years, a long nightmare that was finally over. From the shock of my husband's death, to the horror of discovering his plot, to the high-stakes game of wits in Florida, it was all behind me now. I took my wedding ring out of my purse. The white gold band with its small diamond, a symbol of a 5-year marriage built on lies. I had kept it until this moment, not out of sentiment, but to wait for a time when I truly felt at peace. I looked at it one last time, then with all my strength, I threw it as far as I could into the ocean. It traced a small, glittering arc in the sunlight before disappearing into the deep. The vast, forgiving sea would bury that painful past for me. I took a deep breath, the salty air filling my lungs with life. I smiled. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from my boss. "New life insurance project needs a team lead with experience and guts. Interested?" I texted back immediately. "I'm in. I'll be there on Monday." I turned and walked back along the beach. Ahead of me was a bright new day. I am Grace, an actuary. I have calculated the risks of my past, and now it is time to invest in my future. A future where happiness is not a variable, but a certainty.